She is born behind heavy curtains, in air thick with incense and whispers, far from sunlight.
Her mother weeps quietly while holding her close, relieved the child survived, aware that being born a girl changes everything from the very beginning.
Months later, drums announce her father's return from war, alive when many are not, carrying stories of survival and options.
She grows inside high walls built to guard reputation. Watched carefully, she learns her value rests not.
7, she stands before her father as men gather. The question of betrothal hangs in the air, but only one answer keeps the room calm.
Inside her new home, cruelty is quiet and deliberate. Tasks multiply, approval disappears. When pregnancy is confirmed, it spreads through the household like a verdict. She allows herself a careful hope that motherhood might secure her place.
By the next morning, the space she occupied is cleared. Daily routines resume, steady and unchanged. Her husband takes another young bride. The household reorganizes itself with quiet efficiency, preserving a line.
Father returns fully to public life, discussing trade and alliances, while the promise he once made remains fulfilled in his ledger of obligations.
Her son is handed to another woman to nurse, ensuring continuity. Care transfers smoothly.
The household continues, structured by hierarchy and expectation. Individual lives pass through it.
Her place is filled quickly. The structure does not pause for mourning, only for replacement and continued stability.
Beyond these walls, the city thrives with markets, negotiations, and worship. Largely unaware of the quiet, no formal record preserves her name. At most, a brief note marks a birth, a marriage alliance, and a death within the margins of lineage.
Within this system, daughters function as instruments of obligation. Their personal stories matter less than the alliances secured through their exchange.
She begins and ends behind curtains, her life contained within private rooms. The system remains steady.
In the same compound, sons receive instruction in law and numbers, preparing to inherit authority, while daughters remain confined to domestic preparation.
From an early age, she learns silence as discipline, absorbing expectations through observation rather than instruction or open conversation.
Her body becomes a measure of family honor, assessed quietly for health and appearance, long before she understands the implications of such scrutiny.
When she stumbles, concern centers not on pain but on visible marks, reminders that her future depends on remaining unmarred and presentable.
Words like marriage and duty become distant facts to her, as ordinary and unquestioned as the sky glimpsed beyond the wall.
At 7, prepared carefully and presented before her father, she senses expectation filling the space long before she understands the arrangement being confirmed.
She learns that certain questions carry only one acceptable response, and that compliance restores calm to powerful men. Celebration follows, reinforcing the alliance. Around abundant food, decisions appear honorable.
In private, hierarchy becomes immediate and personal, reducing her role to obedience within a space she barely understands.
Gradually, she learns invisibility as protection, minimizing presence to reduce conflict and survive within rigid boundaries.
Confirmation spreads quickly. Her worth rises temporarily, tied to the expectation of delivering a healthy son.
Labor arrives with intensity her young body struggles to manage, overseen by experienced women focused on outcome rather than comfort.
The process is prolonged and demanding, reflecting risks common to early childbirth in environments lacking modern medical support.
A child is delivered, briefly signaling success, yet complications soon follow, placing her survival in quiet jeopardy.
She is prepared for burial with practiced care, one more life concluded within a system accustomed to such losses.
The burial is brief and orderly. Public acknowledgement remains limited, reflecting the quiet status assigned to young brides.
Soon after, another young bride enters the compound, and routines resume with familiar efficiency, reinforcing continuity over individual memory. Historical documentation rarely preserves such lives in detail, leaving only structural patterns visible to later observers.
The system appears balanced from a distance, sustained by customs that distribute power unevenly yet predictably.
Her life begins and ends within these enclosed rooms, illustrating how private experiences can sustain public systems with
Across generations, such walls define boundaries of movement and expectation, shaping daily life more powerfully than any single decision.
Another child begins the same training, absorbing lessons in posture, restraint, and service long before she can question their purpose.
Opportunities diverge early, with mobility granted to sons and restriction normalized for daughters within the same household. Her path appears predetermined, with limited alternatives visible, reinforcing the expectation that compliance ensures stability.
Authority concentrates in male assemblies, where family strategies are debated without participation from those most affected.
Economic considerations quietly intersect with marriage decisions, blending financial calculation with social obligation.
Within these walls, personal fears and hopes unfold quietly, rarely acknowledged beyond immediate family boundaries.
Patterns repeat with remarkable consistency, each generation inheriting expectations shaped long before their birth. Public life appears dynamic and expansive, while private domestic spaces operate under quieter, more restrictive rules.
Physical barriers reinforce social ones, limiting movement and reinforcing dependence within the household structure.
Lineage continues through documented male descendants, while many female lives remain implied rather than individually recorded.
decisions about her future are discussed within earshot, yet not with her participation.
Daily labor reinforces hierarchy, embedding obedience into routine actions repeated over years.
Time advances steadily, carrying children toward adulthood within established expectations.
The system persists beyond any single life, sustained by repetition, belief, and structures rarely questioned by those who inherit them. Architecture itself communicates expectation, repeating the same boundaries until they feel natural and unquestionable. Physical elevation mirrors social hierarchy, reinforcing authority without the need for spoken explanation.
Posture becomes instruction, teaching deference through small, repeated physical corrections.
Marriage agreements combine personal lives with strategic planning, merging domestic roles and broader alliances.
Childhood shortens quickly within these expectations, compressing growth into preparation for adult responsibility.
Daily rhythms reinforce separation, assigning outward movement to men and inward labor to women.
Clothing and customs signal modesty, but also serve as visible reminders of constraint. Motherhood becomes central to a woman's status, elevating expectation while increasing personal risk.
Childbirth remains one of the most dangerous thresholds in her expected life course.
Many such graves remain unnamed, reflecting how individual identities dissolve within broader social continuity. Over time, individuality fades into collective routine, making each story harder to distinguish.
Boundaries persist not only in structure but in mindset, internalized across generations.
Untold stories remain sealed within private memory, rarely entering formal history.
Public discourse shapes law and policy, often disconnected from domestic realities experienced by women.
Within private spaces, reflection occurs quietly, though rarely with power to alter circumstance.
Identity remains defined externally, reflected through roles assigned by family and tradition.
Individual outlines blur within larger patterns of authority and custom.
Possibility exists beyond the wall, yet remains largely inaccessible within established norms.
History preserves structures and outcomes more readily than the quiet experiences that sustain them. Each new day begins with familiar routines, reinforcing continuity over change.
Training ensures the continuation of established roles, embedding custom deeply before adulthood.
Authority persists beyond individuals, rooted in position rather than personality.
Constraints operate subtly, maintained by expectation rather than visible force.
Generations cycle through identical roles, each believing their experience singular, yet shaped by long-standing patterns.
Private domestic systems operate alongside visible civic life, both sustaining the same social order.
Rooms remember patterns of use, even when occupants change.
Birth and risk remain intertwined, central to expectations placed upon young brides. Structures outlast individuals, shaping countless lives across time.
What remains visible in history are frameworks and outcomes, not the quiet endurance within them.
The curtains close again on a life scarcely recorded, while the system that shaped it continues, steady and largely unquestioned.